So we've been on sabbatical.
Yeah, it's been weird because I feel like what was the date on your last note there?
November 12th, 2021.
We are so sorry. You got sick and then I got sick and we you can't talk on these clear ass microphones when you have
Right. When you have this sick Phoebe voice from Friends.
smelly cat, what all fit you.
All right. Well, if you haven't turned us off by now.
No, it was sticky shoes.
Okay.
Why you think on me, baby?
At any rate, we were hoping our voices would return back to normal.
And they still aren't. But we can't wait any longer.
No.
We're bursting at the seams.
The
in
anticipation.
2022.
Happy New Year. Let's do this.
Yeah.
So I got to be honest, right? My heart is pounding a little bit.
That's
today.
cute. That's how it was when we first started.
Yeah, but it's like a different kind of pound.
Why is it a different kind of pound?
So today we're going to talk about loss. And it's a super vulnerable topic for me because if you know my situation, my dad passed away in August of 2020, and he's been showing up lately in some different ways and showing me specifically some signs that he's here. But I just want to take the time today to talk about loss and what that means to me and to you, and probably a lot of people are going to be able to resonate with what we're going to talk about.
Especially just coming off of the holiday, which was particularly hard this year for us, obviously for many reasons, but a lot of people may have gone through that as well, coming down off the holiday. So
talking about the first or second holiday without your loved ones and how that looks for you. But I want to kind of take it back, to be honest with you. For me, the first time I found out something was going on with my dad, I want to say it was around, it had to be about end of 2015, maybe 2016. And anyone who knew my dad knew he was a big dude and life of the party. But one day he said to me, "Hey, Red," he was like, "I got this big lump on my neck." And again, my dad wasn't a small dude, so it wasn't something that was really prominent, or, maybe to a stranger, you wouldn't be able to notice it. But he's like, "What do you think I should do?" So I told him he should probably get checked out by ENT, which is like ear, nose, and throat, just to make sure that it was okay. And of course, through referrals from his PCP to actually get in to see ear, nose, and throat, I think it had been at least 3 or 4 months, right? And everything in healthcare takes forever, especially the world that we live in now with COVID. So by the time he got around to getting to his appointment and then doing some diagnostic testing, etc., they had sampled the bulge in his neck and came back and told him that he had squamous cell carcinoma. And
which is what?
It's a type of cancer. So next steps were, they told him it was head and neck cancer. He had 90% chance of full recovery. And then, so we started our journey of chemotherapy and radiation. And because he had head and neck cancer, he had to, they told him it would be best if they put in a feeding tube because he would have difficulty swallowing. And so he reluctantly agreed to that. And then everything just kind of flipped upside down, to be honest with you. So he went through his rounds of chemo. He would have to go there. He was still working, but he went down Every week it kind of became, unfortunately, like a second, I don't want to call it home, but a second place for him to be outside of work, and outside of being home with us. But of course he made everyone laugh when he was there. Went through his treatments, again, with a full expectation that he would make 100% recovery and we would never have to deal with this again, because he had a 90% chance of just coming out on top and never looking back. So fast forward, he finishes his treatment, and, he's got to have PET scans and all that. And that's basically a full body scan to make sure that he doesn't have cancer anywhere else. And after he finished his treatment, his PET scan result came back, and the doctors told him that he had an old rib fracture on his left side, like his left chest. And my dad's like, I never fractured my rib there. What do you mean? And they're like, oh, it's nothing to worry about. Well, he was notorious for saying he would hold his left chest or his left boob, and he would say, my titty hurts. And it's like, what the hell do you mean, Dad, your titty hurts? He's like, I don't know. Like, maybe I did something to it, or, I was in the hot tub or whatever. And, come to find out, again, fast forwarding, that he had, cancer in his ribs. So over the course of 4 years, he fought with everything that he had. My dad was 52 when he was initially diagnosed with cancer, and had, again, every intention of just fighting this and never looking back. But unfortunately, like I said, in August of 2020, he passed away. So I just want to take you through real quick that journey for me. As his daughter, we sort of watched him get more weak and more sick as time went on. He went from walking independently and walking me down the aisle in my parents' backyard to Mary Bethany. He didn't need a walker. He didn't need anything. Didn't need a wheelchair at that point. And then what was it, like a week and a half later?
I don't think. I thought it was a few days.
He started to require using the walker every day. Something as simple as getting up to go to the bathroom. He needed it. He was embarrassed to go out in public. He was a young guy, and he had to have a walker going to the restaurants and what have you. But he sustained 2 falls toward the end of his journey here on earth with us. The first one, he fell trying to actually sign for an Amazon package. He didn't want to miss, because he would order.
Loved his Amazon.
Oh my gosh. He ordered everything on Amazon probably every day. You know that meme that comes up that's like, I don't know who needs to hear this today, but you don't need anything from Amazon. That was my dad. But it gave him something to do, and just kept buying anything and everything that he loved and that he thought we would love. So he had to sign for something, and he got up, missed the Amazon package, but sustained a fall, and he fractured his left humerus. So he was in a sling, and that was in June. And then in August, he slid off of the bed. He was wearing like basketball shorts and slid off of his bed in his bedroom and fractured his femur. And he was like, oh, it's not really a big deal. But he couldn't. Like, I took one look at it and knew that it was broken. So we took a trip down to the ED at Mercy, and they suggested that regardless of his status, that they do surgery for him to manage his pain. So that's what they went ahead and they did. And after his surgery, and this was right around your birthday, right? Mm-hmm. So this is August. I think he had surgery on your birthday, August 18th. And then, so the next day, it was a Wednesday, the 19th, I worked from his hospital room with my laptop, and it was about 8:00 in the morning. And he looked over at me. It was just him and I. And he said, read, "I don't want to do this anymore." And so I said, "Okay, Dad." I said, "Do you want me to call Mom and tell her that?" And he said, "Yeah." And he started crying. But he was just in too much pain. You know, the way he would describe it is like he was in pain head to toe, mainly in his back. Because at this point, his cancer had spread, again, in his bones, his liver, just sort of all over. And no amount of pain medicine would relieve him. So I called my mom and I told her that my dad didn't want to do this anymore. And she was frantic and she said, "I'm coming down there right now." She got in her car and just kind of probably drove like a bat out of hell to Mercy. And when she got there, she kind of said, "Mike, what do you mean? Like, what, we have our appointments in Boston." And my dad had been getting his care at the Damore Cancer Center as well as Dana-Farber in Boston. And he said, "That's it, Dar. I'm done."
Yeah, she was not happy.
No. I mean, as anyone could imagine, having their spouse tell them something like that, especially at such a young age. And so we made moves that day to get my dad home on hospice, and Holyoke VNA and hospice care did an amazing job getting him out of the hospital on that day, on Wednesday. We were home by 4 p.m. He went home in an ambulance, and
which you helped. I have pictures of you helping the EMTs get him from.
There were 4 EMTs and me, and I was pretty much carrying my dad in the house. It's fine. Yeah, but they set us up with a hospital bed and everything we needed to take care of him. And at that point, he was obviously still awake and alert. And
we watched Bruins that night, all laying in bed.
Yep. Because it was me, you, and my mom. We slept in their king bed, and my dad was right next to her in his hospital bed. And so Wednesday night goes by, Thursday. Now we have the home care nurse in with us, helping us to understand the process. More so my mom and anyone who isn't healthcare related, as to what we could anticipate over the next few days. So I made some pretty difficult phone calls.
There was so much that went into that. Like them listing out, these are the meds, this is the morphine, this is when to do it. Your mom's just writing everything down like a crazy person. Like, what?
Mm-hmm.
It's so much. It was so much.
I mean,
I don't know how people do it if they don't have a medical background.
I don't know either. I think for me, and I've said this to you before, I hope that in every past life I've had and every life I get in the future that I have something to do with healthcare, because the amount of information that they throw at you and expect you to retain in a time of sort of crisis, right, and grieving or anticipated grieving is completely overwhelming. So the fact that I knew what she was talking about med-wise and care-wise and what to do just in general from my background of being a nurse was so invaluable. I've thought about potentially in the future doing hospice because of the amount of education that is just needed in general. But yeah, luckily I was there to help facilitate all of the care for my dad and keep him, I'll say, nicely, heavily medicated. You're welcome, Dad. So he wasn't in pain.
Because think about it, like even with how much pain he was in from the cancer, he also had a broken femur.
Yeah.
Like his femur was snapped in half.
Totally.
And they just did surgery on it, and we had to flip him and to like wash him up and to change the dressings on it. And he, the first couple of days, he's just like, "What the are you doing to me?"
Mm-hmm.
Like, come on.
So mad at us.
So in so much pain.
Mm-hmm.
That poor man was in so much pain. And so, yeah, you have to heavily medicate somebody like that.
Totally.
I'm sure he appreciated it.
I know he did.
And even like going back to you saying, thank God that you knew what was going on. How do other people understand during a time of COVID when you can only have there was no visitor policy at that point. You work at the hospital, so you were able to be there and work from there, but it was a no visitor policy. Right. So
except for people who were on hospice care,
but
or
that's like one or
having
two people,
babies.
Maybe.
Yeah.
Right. Exactly. So you gave him the gift of being able to be in his, and everybody a gift for people to come see him and say goodbye and give him that comfort of being home. Whereas people who don't understand how to do the things that we did and you did in those few days, they can't do it. And so that's when they are in the hospital and either die by themselves or.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
I think one of the greatest things about bringing him home was having the time and the opportunity for all of his, you know, family and friends that wanted to come and say and sit with him and say what they wanted to say to him before he left this physical earth. Was, I mean, I can't even put into words what that looked like, what that meant, and how special that was, to be honest with you. Whew, losing it a little bit here.
I'm tearing up
but
a little bit here too.
Yeah, goosebumps everywhere. I think that's him. He's here listening with us. Yeah, just hearing what people had to say, and just they would sit in the room and hold his hand for as long as they wanted to. And I think it was just an incredible gift to be able to give him, as well as everyone who wanted that time with him. So ultimately he passed away on August 23rd, which was a Sunday. And we had encouraged, Bethany and I had encouraged my mom and sister to go out to the store just to get out of the house, maybe come back with some breakfast donuts, wink, wink. And they did. And our plan for that day was to get him all washed up and, you know, because he had been in the bed, and get some lotion on his feet, which Abby so loved to do. He called it, "Will you please rub my piggies?" So we were able to have my mom and sister come home. Bethany and I were getting him washed up. I don't know if you want to tell this part of the story, but go for it.
Oh, Mike. So he was, I'm going to call him a flirt, right?
Oh, totally. Yeah. Everyone would agree with you on that.
He was a little flirty. So, you know, the fact that I am seeing pretty much your father stripped down to nothing at this point, right? Is not comical, but he would think it's comical if he was sound of mind. He'd probably be pretty excited. So we're giving him his bed
bath extraordinaire.
Thank you. Yes. And so we're flipping him every sort of way. We're putting deodorant on him. We're doing all this. And so he is down now to the point where the only thing left on this man was a washcloth over his peach. Is what you call it.
Yeah,
my wife calls them peaches.
Peaches.
Anyway, so
God help me if I have baby boys.
No kidding. So that was the only thing left to wash, guys. Really, I mean, so we got everything else done, and I said, "All right, Mike, today's the day. Today is the day. It's happening. I'm going to have to see this thing." And so you said, "All right, can you go get me another pair of gloves?" I think it was. I don't remember what it was, but you made me turn around and go, "Oh, it was another washcloth. Yeah. Can you go and get another washcloth?" And so I turned around to go do that so that you could finish the last thing that we had to clean up there. And you said, "Bethany." And he took this like indescribable gasp. It was just like, one of his last breaths. Yeah. Really. So he gasped, and then we kind of just stood there. I'm pretty sure all of the blood like rushed to my feet. I don't even know what happened. I just kind of stood there.
Both of us froze, but and I said, "This is happening right now. Call my mom and sister in here."
Yep. And so they had just walked in the door from going to get breakfast, and I called them in, and when they were in the room, I think he took two more big breaths. And that was like, your mom was holding his hand crying, pretty hysterically. And then as soon as he took his last breath, it was really interesting. As soon as he took his last breath, she was still holding his hand. And then she like put it down and said, that's not him anymore. I like feel him. She described it as when he took his last breath and he was no longer there for anymore, she felt this like shot through her heart. It was as if he was passing like through her heart.
She had to sit down immediately so she didn't fall.
And just like the look on her face of like, that is not him in his body anymore. I feel him outside of his body. Was like crazy. Like, and she's not a very like spiritual person in that sense. She goes to church every Sunday, so she's more of a spiritual sense of like religious, but not in the form of too much crazy and like signs and spirituality in that sense, if that makes sense. And so to witness that was pretty powerful.
Oh, totally.
As well.
And something that I was like, okay, Mom, sit down. Like, we don't need another emergency here. You know what I mean? And she just, you almost like can't explain it. Right. Hopefully you can, there's a picture being painted somewhere in your mind as you're listening, but yeah, it was incredible to be there.
And she's an very anxious person. And so we were so concerned with what was going to happen when he came home on hospice, and she was going to go over the deep end when he passed away. But like, of course she was sad, and she's still sad, and we're all sad. But the way that she would the look on her face of comfort, because she could feel Daddy is what, like, he's right here. He's with me. Yep. I say I'm going to the store. Daddy comes with me. Yep. And like, it was just mind blowing to us and very, very comforting and actually awesome, because we were so worried about her.
But honestly, the amount of strength that she's shown for herself and for the rest of us as we try to keep it together through these, times without him is holidays, incredible. Cheers to you, Mom.
Yeah.
You're one strong lady. We do not know how you do it.
No kidding.
But we appreciate you every day.
I mean, speaking of strong lady, my love, my wife, during a time of just overwhelming sadness because of what was going on, I was also like falling in love with you a little bit more. Aww. Because I was watching your strength through all of that, because you were put in this position of daughter, but also nurse. And so while everyone is essentially already grieving, because he's home on hospice, and you're just anticipating what hour or minute at this point we're going to lose him, you have to do that as well. Like, you're doing that as well. But at the same time, people are looking at you for help and answers and advice. And so you're wearing this nurse cap, but also this daughter cap at the same time.
Totally.
And I was just so impressed by the way that you did that with such balance. Like, I'll never forget, there was, you and I were the tag team of changes, wound care and bathing him, and mostly wound care, which you were so cute. Your educator hat was on too. You're like, do you want to do it this time? Do one, see one, what was it? See one, do one, teach one or whatever. Right. But there was one time I'll never forget, is like, you had just finished doing, I think it was wound care. I think you were changing the dressing of his knee, and you came over and you ripped off your gloves, and then you just collapsed in my arms and started bawling your eyes out. Like, it was like nurse gloves came off and daughter hat was on, and you were just able to stay so strong to help him. But then you also were vulnerable in the sense of like, I'm a grieving daughter. And I was just like holding you in that moment and just so proud of you. I was obviously heartbroken too, because when you hurt, I hurt, but just very impressed by the way that you handled everything, and still am.
Thank you, honey.
Yeah. You're welcome.
I mean, it's just one of those things. You have to do what you have to do to get the job done and make sure he had what he needed and he was comfortable. Yeah. And sometimes that's really difficult, especially for family that's in healthcare, to be able to separate those things. But yeah, that's something that I'll never be able to, no one can ever take that away from me. And I'm actually very grateful for that experience. I would rather it be me than a stranger essentially doing those things for him. So yeah.
It was just hard all around too. Like, we were surrounded by what I felt like surrounded by cancer at that point.
Oh yeah, totally.
I remember there was a time where one of my friends texted me. I think I was updating her on your dad and my brother-in-law, and she was like, this isn't normal, right? Like, I just want you to remember that you losing or you being surrounded by people who have cancer and are actively dying of cancer is not normal. I personally don't know anybody in my direct family that, not even direct, like cousins or cousins of cousins that have passed away or are struggling in battling with cancer. But you and I, it consumed our lives. So your dad had stage 4 cancer at the same time that my brother-in-law had stage 4 breast cancer. I actually remember sitting, it's so sad to say, but I was sitting up front with you at his services, and we were waiting for it to start. So people were still trickling in. And of course, in Boyle fashion, my family comes in last.
Ain't that the
truth? We're
truth?
always the last ones to come in. But my sister Missy and her husband, Chris, my brother-in-law, came in right before it started. And I just looked at him walk in, and he was sick, very sick at that time. And I just had that thought of like, the next time we're going to be doing this is for him. And so during a time of being not only sad that my father-in-law passed away, and sad for you because you're so heartbroken, my hearts are also breaking for my sister and my nieces and nephews, just looking at him, So for me, being in the middle of all of these people that I love that are losing people, it wasn't my dad. It wasn't my husband.
Right.
Directly affected me. Sure. Yeah, of course. But it was like I had to be strong for a lot of different people. And I was just like, I felt like in this like web of being surrounded by people losing people, people that I love losing the most important people in their lives. So it was not even a little bit of hurt from everybody. It was a lot of bit of hurt from a lot of different people. Yeah. So, anyways,
I love you, honey.
I love you too. Yeah. So that's coming from a perspective of I'll call it either the sibling or the spouse, or maybe both at the same time. How hard it also, like, allow yourself to feel that way too, right? Sometimes I was like, I don't even know why I'm the one that's crying so much. Why am I the one that's breaking down today? And just allow yourself to do that, because it's affecting you.
Yeah. Everyone's affected differently by it.
Right.
Whether that person who's passing away is super close to you, like our examples, or whether they're not, but they still affect you in some way. Like you have to talk about it. You have to let it out. You have to get professional help if that's what you need. Because, the process of them physically passing away and going through their services, and that's all a lot to digest, right? Going through all those stages of grief. But then you actually have to figure out your life after, and how you get through your day-to-day, work and house and the rest of your family, and how you have to show up for everyone else that is still physically here, that depends on you for anything and everything, right? And it's going to hit you at such different times. Honestly, the grief has hit me on days where I would never expect it to, and then on days where I would expect it to, I'm okay. You know?
Yeah.
It's kind of hard to describe, but you just kind of have to be prepared for it to happen. And when it does happen, let it happen, because there's been days where I've tried to fight it and it actually hurts more. So just try to open yourself up and be vulnerable, because, it's there for a reason. And, we also have to remember that we're also only human too. So, and I'm a person that doesn't really show so much of that side of me, to be honest, right? Everyone's always like, you're so strong. You're such a strong nurse and you're such a strong person. So initially I'm like, yeah, I got to keep it together for everybody. but you actually really don't. And that's sort of an invaluable lesson that I've also been able to take away from my experiences with my dad passing away and other people around us who we love passing away. That you're not supposed to have all the answers, and you're not supposed to be okay by this date and time. Because even right now, like, I just feel like, again, like my heart beating in the beginning of this, like I can feel it, like it almost feels like there's a hole in it right now. But I mean, the happy times will hit you too, and the memories will come back. Every time you look at a picture or listen to a video or, hear that person's voice. I mean, it's so weird not to hear their voice anymore on a day-to-day basis, right? So it's so weird not to hear my dad say anything, right? I love you, Red, or let's take another Jaeger bomb, Red, or whatever. Yeah.
I thought it was the struggle. I kind of want to talk about the struggle you had at Chris's wake / services.
Terrible for me.
Because you had this kind of feeling of, you're looking at my nieces and nephew, right? So there's how old are my nieces and nephew? So we got almost 13 and the oldest. 13's the oldest.
13, then 6, and 3 now.
Okay.
Yeah.
So, and it's almost, oh my God, February is going to be a year.
Yeah.
Since he passed away. So 1 year before that. So 2 and 4 or 2 and 5 or whatever. Anyways, at the services for Chris, and, they're running around and, look at my daddy, and pointing at pictures and not really understanding. And you had this feeling of like, you went through almost like the generations. You went from Cassidy, the youngest, won't remember, besides, pictures and stuff, her dad. My mom had her dad until he was 95, 94 years old, right? That is my papa lived the life, right? You pass away at 94, you live this long life, you weren't sick, whatever.
Totally.
And then you're in the middle of, you should have had 40 more years with him, and Cassidy should have had him for, so you were like in this middle of like, I should be grateful that I had him longer than Cassidy and Skylar and Missy for all that matter.
Sure.
But I wanted him as long as your mom had it.
Yeah.
So it was like this middle. I don't know. I just thought that was an interesting conversation to have.
That perspective for me, just looking at, and we could all sit, right? You can all sit and say, what if, or this person should have been here longer, or, only the good die young, and all of these things. But you can't change it. And I think the hardest part for me that day at Chris's funeral was I was going back to the place where my dad last was.
Same
because
funeral parlor.
Yeah. So that day hit me hard for reasons that, I should have been sad for Chris, but I was overcome by sadness about my dad, because that's the last place that I sort of had him and had everyone around me to support me and my family about losing my dad. So that day was really tough for me for different reasons.
Yeah. And going back to what you just said before of like, you don't need an excuse. You don't need a reason. You don't need to justify your feelings when you're feeling the way that you do. Like, you don't have to be like, well, I should be sad for somebody else. No, you feel the way you want to feel. It's the same way when we went to the first wedding after he passed away, and the father-daughter dance, you absolutely lost it. And it was like a scene of a movie where I was chasing you in the rain. It was downpouring, and you were just walking and crying, and luckily my hair was slicked back, so I wasn't.
And mine was not. Mine was a hot mess.
Like a poodle.
Oh my God. It was terrible. It looked like a lion's mane.
But in happy times and sad times, different things are going to trigger you, and you don't have to justify it, and you're allowed to feel however it is that you feel in that moment. And if anybody gets mad at you for having those feelings at a time where it's inconvenient for them, I'm sorry, but...
Well, that part hasn't happened yet, but I mean...
I'm saying for other people that might feel that way.
Sure.
Because you can, right?
Yeah.
I'm sure people have. Anywho, I think what's the interesting thing, I think you said something before about, you know, it could be people that you know, it could be people that you don't know. Even throughout all of this, learning the difference between the anticipated loss and the sudden loss, right? Like, because it's a two-edged sword, is that what they call it?
Double-edged sword.
Thank you. When they are struggling for years, you can anticipate and you have time to say goodbye. And then when it's sudden, like my brother-in-law's mother, sudden, like one of those, she should be here. Whereas Chris and your dad, it's like they're not in pain anymore.
Right.
I'm so happy they're not in pain anymore. But then the ones that are sudden and it's a heart attack and they're no longer here, but they should be.
Yeah.
And they would prefer to be. I think that's like Chris and your dad were in pain and we're over it. The people who we witness sudden losses, you know, it's like they should be here. They loved being here. Like they still have so much more to get out of this life and they weren't struggling.
Yeah.
But at the same time, they didn't struggle. We didn't have to witness them struggle. It's just such a
something you just can't put into words. I mean, yeah, it's a different kind of process for you to just go through and try to understand. I mean, the sudden loss of someone, you know, a car accident or a heart attack, like you mentioned, like you don't potentially have a way to say goodbye to that person. And
those scare the shit out of me.
Right.
Like,
how can they not?
Seeing either mutual friends that we have or those ones keep me up at night. The people that you kind of know, like kind of are acquaintances with them or just know of, and you hear the story about them, those ones keep me up and they keep me up more now that I have you and I think about living a day without you. Yeah. Is a crippling fear for me, knowing, you know, every time you leave for work in the morning or just so scared of other people, you know, getting in a car accident or whatever it is.
I know.
It's so scary for me now, especially more because I'm obsessed with you and I don't want to live my days without you.
Well, right back at you. I always tell you that you have to live at least one day longer than me.
No,
so I don't have to live a second without you.
We are notebook dying, baby. We are holding hands, laying down, and choosing together to die together.
Ideally,
or tragically being lost together at the same time. Yes. It has to. I will not. Yeah. I won't survive.
What song is that?
I will survive, but I won't survive.
Okay, Whitney Houston 2.0.
Rude.
I think it's hilarious. I'm complimenting you. Whitney Houston has a great voice.
Thank you. Okay.
It's the sniffle voice.
It is.
I'm a fan.
I'm Phoebe Buffay.
At any rate, I want to share a little story about signs from my dad yesterday.
Oh.
And then just like signs in general, because I think that they're like,
that's where the comfort comes from.
Awesome comfort and reminders that even though our loved ones aren't here like physically with us, they are like literally still here with us. So yesterday I like felt my dad a lot yesterday, and it happens to me randomly, or like I've had a couple dreams about him since he's passed away. But I have this like joke with my family that my dad comes back in the form of bugs. And, you know, most people will say like a cardinal or, you know, normal things. But no, my dad is a bug, because I feel like
no particular bug, just a bug.
Any kind of bug. A fly, a bee, a water bug. I will tell you, I have not killed one bug since my dad has passed away. It's a true fact.
It is. We've had our friend Spike the spider that's been in our bathroom for
spiders, ladybugs. He is every kind of form of bug. So yesterday, I felt him a lot. And of course, out of nowhere, this giant pterodactyl size fly just shows up in the kitchen. Like, okay, it's not summertime. The doors are not open. Like, how does a fly get in the kitchen? No idea. He lands on the kitchen faucet. And I'm like, hey, Dad, is that you? What's up? How's your day? And sure as shit, I'm not kidding you, I have this awesome little memorabilia that's
bottle opener.
Yeah, it's a bottle opener, and it says dad on it, but have one in memory of dad or something to that effect. And so as soon as I ask this fly, aka Mike Ames, if it's him, he goes from the kitchen faucet to the dad sign, and I'm like, I knew it was you. And then I happen to be drinking some red wine. And so if it's not enough that he landed on the dad sign, he literally flies from the dad sign to my red wine glass. Not only like on it, he flies into it, and he is swimming around in the red wine. Couldn't drink any more of it because now there's fly juice in my red wine. But I'm like, I'm just going to let you swim in that pool of red wine, because who wouldn't want to do that, right? And then like 5 minutes goes by, and I'm like, you're either getting too buzzed to fly. Which is hilarious. I didn't even plan that. So I'm just going to like nicely dump it out in the sink so he doesn't drown or
nicely
whatever. So I dump it out, and then he just flies away. And,
wow.
There's many other signs that I get from him. Like we have an awesome wind chime that I got from my great friend Brittany that hangs on our front porch. Every time the wind blows, I think about him. I mean, there's just so many things.
Mm-hmm.
Every red truck or yellow truck that goes by. Honestly, every Amazon delivery is my dad. I was actually giving this speech. What do you call it? A eulogy. Giving the eulogy at his wake. And the doorbell went off at the funeral home because it was an Amazon package delivery.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm like, seriously? So
yeah,
bugs and Amazon packages. It's where it's at for me.
I mean, yeah, it's if it just puts a smile on your face in the time of, 100%. You have to celebrate their life. And yeah, my sister for Chris is Blue Jays. It's every time there's Blue Jays, and Blue Jays are just like around. And there's times where I'm driving down and I'll see a Blue Jay and a Cardinal like pass over each other, like it just makes you smile. It makes you feel them. Mm-hmm. And like, what more can you ask for?
Mm-hmm. What about your necklace?
Oh yeah, Chris?
Yeah.
Oh yeah. Well, this was great. I mean, this is really.
I just need to paint you all a picture here, because I was trying to signal to Bethany like, "Oh, your necklace," and she just thought she spilled like something serious on her.
Podcasting. What does it matter if I spill something on my shirt?
AKA, just talk about your necklace because it's beautiful.
Well, yeah. I mean, this is kind of going back to the topic we were discussing before of like how freaking hard holidays are, and I didn't expect to be super emotional on Christmas.
Yeah.
But not for some reason, obviously I know why, but Christmas Eve, I think, is when it started, but it was really emotional for me. I just felt really sad for everyone. Mm-hmm. I felt really sad for everyone. I was thinking about your dad not being there for you all, and your mom being there alone for most of the day, and for my nieces and nephews and my sister to not have Chris there for the first time on Christmas. And not that he was a super ho 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 jolly old man in the sense of like liking holidays. He didn't like to be in the center of attention. He didn't really like that kind of stuff. He's a shy man. But still, I was sad. And so when we got to my parents' house after opening presents at your house, your mom's house, we got to my parents' house, and all of the kids were running around with these necklaces on, and they ran over super proud and said, "My daddy's in here." Mm-hmm. And I lost it. I was done. As soon as I walked in, there was just this feeling. They had just lost their Chris's dog as well. So right after Chris passed away, his dog that he had since he was a puppy, I think he was like 8 years old or 9 years old or something, he had cancer. So then my freaking sister and my dad are bringing him to chemo treatments. Anyways, he passed away 2 days before Christmas.
Yes,
right?
I think so, yeah.
The day before Christmas, something like that. And so it was just a sad environment, at least for me, when I walked in. And so when they're like, "My daddy's in here," I'm sorry because I couldn't stop crying. I feel like you were like, what do I do?
Yeah.
What do I do?
Yeah. I mean, it was a lot. It was a lot for everybody.
And super innocently, it was really kind of cute though to see, you know, my niece be like, my daddy's in here. And then my nephew from my other sister was like, that's heaven.
Oh my
like,
God.
Genuinely
so
just at like, oh, I didn't, that's heaven. Because he knows Chris went to heaven. And so if her daddy's in there on her necklace, then that must be heaven.
Makes sense. Total sense.
And maybe it is. So anyways, it was very nice. Toward the end of the night, my sister ended up giving us all one as well. So I have Chris on me too. And I said to her, I said, it's weird because I feel Chris often. And it's weird to like physically now feel him laying on my chest because I felt him kind of in my heart already.
Yeah.
And so it's, I don't know. I love it. But anyways, this whole sign stuff, I think it was shortly after your dad passed away that we saw that documentary on Netflix, the Surviving Death documentary.
Yes.
Oh my goodness.
Must see.
Definitely. I mean, even if you don't watch all of the episodes within that documentary, definitely watch the one on near-death experiences and signs.
Yep.
Because the near-death experiences one, I think that's where I found the most comfort because they are literally, there are so many people who have come extremely close to death to the point where they died and kind of came back. So like pretty quickly.
No, they did come back.
Well, they did. I mean,
they were clinically dead and then they were resuscitated.
Either like a drowning incident or a car accident or a labor.
Yeah, someone in labor
essentially died during labor, but then came back. And so these people explain the way that they felt, and which was surrounded by just like love and comfort and peace, like this overwhelming sense of peace that they've never experienced before. So you can only say that it's God, right? Whatever God means to you, whether, you know, God is the powerful almighty that lives in the heavens, or God that's inside of you, or God is, you know, whatever it is.
Right.
However you define God, that's the only way to like explain that. And so to think that somebody like your dad or Chris in that moment of just about to die is feeling this overwhelming sense of peace. Remember your dad was like, I woke up in the middle of the night and was like, I don't know where to go. Which way do I go? Which way do I go? And we're like, go to heaven. Don't go to hell. No, that's not what we said. But
no, he woke up like legitimately confused.
Where do I go?
Where do I go? He just kept repeating that.
Or there must have been like a light. I don't know. We're like, tell us more. What are you seeing?
Yeah. It was incredible.
So crazy. But anyways, just that, knowing that, and that some people, I think there was a part of it where there was like a group of people and some people were standing up being like, I'm struggling because I actually don't want to be back here because of how peaceful it was where I was when I was dead, essentially, for however long that was. Well, and now you're back to this place and you're like, it was so much more peaceful there. And it's like, whoa.
Well, and they saw people in their life who had already passed away and crossed over. And so, right, imagine unexpectedly passing away and seeing
all the people that you love,
seeing my dad on the other side, or you seeing Chris or whatever, and they're just like so happy.
Wow.
So I mean, that's a lot. It's a lot to digest,
but that gives you some sort of comfort because when people die, you're sad for yourself. You're sad because you miss them physically being here, but really they're probably more likely than not
so at peace,
so fine in like here too. But and that's why I have been to Catholic school my whole life, right? Besides college was the first time I didn't wear a uniform.
It was the first time I was I guess college.
Yeah, freshman year of college was the first time you weren't wearing a skirt.
Most difficult thing to get up and decide what to wear.
Still is. Not gonna lie. But all of this is kind of the line in the prayer, on earth as it is in heaven. I would kind of just like say those words before, because I was told that this is the prayer that I have to say at this time during church, before and after this and this happens. And so like, on earth as it is in heaven, give us this day our daily bread. It's like, you just say it. But really, I mean, the goal in life is for earth to be on earth as it is in heaven, for that peace, for that feeling of just love, surrounded by love and joy and overwhelming,
just like serenity.
Peace. I mean, how obvious but it's really hard to find that on this crazy planet that we live in. Anyways, I don't know if that's related to this at all, but
yeah, no,
okay.
On earth as it is in heaven. Something to think about, because you're right. You just get programmed sometimes to say your prayers and to, you know, do the right thing. But when you stop and actually process what they mean, because those moments in your life, that's what's relevant. I mean, it gives me a sense of hope, and it gives me a sense of peace to know that, you know, where we're going after this life is beautiful, right? And it's just something, you know, to look forward to know that you're not going to be alone, and, you know, just so interesting.
It was really what brought me some tears. Obviously, we'll have a separate episode on this one day, but going through like the fertility process and you know, planning out what that means to have babies. And my sister made a comment of like, that child will get so many angel kisses before they get here, you know, or before they're whatever that means. But the thought of that just makes me so overwhelmingly emotional, thinking that the soul of our unborn child one day, I know this is probably a lot, but because we're in the middle of, you know, trying to build our family, you know, it's kind of like bye, you're in great hands, you're gonna love them so much, bye.
So many angel kisses.
So they get to like essentially meet our baby and then bless them to come down, and they're probably like, all right, I don't know if you're ready for those two, so we gotta prep you a little bit more.
They gotta find the perfect little soul for us.
Yeah, I don't know, it's just it's a beautiful thought, overwhelmingly beautiful thought.
They're all watching over us.
Yeah,
right?
I firmly believe that.
Anyone who's ever passed away that's been special to us or to you, if you're listening, right? They're still with you, making sure that you're okay. And
the more open you are to feeling them, the more you're going to feel them.
Absolutely.
So just try a little bit more. Just sit and talk to them, and I think they'll probably talk back in some way.
And they're going to send you their signs to let you know that they're there.
Yeah. Just feel them.
I love that.
I remember when we were doing like the poster boards, you know, when you to put poster boards together for the wake, and
we had categories.
Of course.
We had categories for my dad. You know, I think that we probably had, I don't know, an obnoxious amount. And there were probably 15 different poster boards. Honestly, a piece of advice I have for everyone is to take pictures. I know that we're in this like techie world of taking pictures on our phone, but take pictures and print them out, because the amount of people who came through his services and said they are going to take more pictures was like so great.
Yeah.
It made me smile and made me so happy to know that they recognized, honestly, his entire life in pictures, even if they had only known him for a few years. But they were so impressed with the amount of printed photos we had just from his entire life.
Yeah. And I think you said when we were putting them together, you were like, why are we waiting for people not to be here to do this stuff? Like we sit there for hours and hours and hours and go through pictures and laugh and cry. And you're like, I'm not like, we need to do this more, like for birthdays. So for your birthday this year.
Yes. Starting new traditions, 2022.
We requested that it's only going to be a small group because the world is crazy right now, but that they print out their favorite pictures of you with them, share some stories behind it. So like what perfect birthday for you is for people to just sit in a circle and talk about you.
Wow. I don't know how I feel about that. I mean, I'm super excited about it. I'm not going to lie. No, but like how great is that to have the pictures? Ideally, I would want them, you know, moving forward to just write out what their thought was on the photo. So then that could be kept too. And I want to put them in photo albums and just keep them every birthday to be able to look back. But like, how fun.
Yeah. Why wait until the person's gone to celebrate their life in that way?
Seriously.
And to remember, you know, not just the previous year, but like everything. I don't know.
You're going to hear some stories.
Yeah.
I mean, you've probably already heard a lot of them,
Probably.
but from my friends,
Yeah.
they're going to share some stories. I'm pumped.
Yeah, me too. Good new traditions.
Yeah. So try it out. I want to hear people's feedback on what their family and friends like remember about a time in your life, right? And like how it made them feel, and I don't know, just a good opportunity to reminisce and go back in time.
Yeah. Woo. Sorry to come back after a 2-month hiatus and talk about loss, but we felt like it was important to, we said we were going to talk about real talk, and that's what we're doing here. And so hopefully you find some comfort in this after going through the holidays, and go through your 2022 with love in your heart, and wrap your arms around the people that you love, because you really aren't guaranteed tomorrow with them.
Enjoy every moment.
We'll come back with some light stuff the next episode.
Yeah. And cheers to 2022, everybody.
Whoop, whoop.
Super excited to see what the year brings to health and happiness and all the love.
All the love.
All right.
Bye, y'all.
Bye.